Well, say it with me, everyone. It's Friday. And it really is Friday. Got my questions. I don't know. Sabrina keeps telling me to take a break. I'm still a little burned out. I took some time off and, in a sense, and I did sort of a lot of poking on my own watches, but like we didn't go anywhere. We haven't had an actual vacation still in like 3 years. So I'm a little burned out, which makes me a little avoidant of doing this work, but I like to keep doing it. Once I get into it, it's fine. And also, I don't want to disappoint everybody. Forbin Colossus, 38. Oh wait, wrist check. Well, as far as watch checks go, today's a special day because I have 2 wrist checks. This 7A48 moon phase, the classic one that one normally sees. There were a few other versions of it, but I did one recently for someone, and I haven't owned one actually in a very long time. So I went and found another one and brought it in and came in and I restored it, and there it is. It's pretty neat. As I was saying, I have 2 today. First is this, which I have spoken of. It's so nice that it's so clean. But this is the one that I've really been digging. I owned this watch for probably 10 years. It's this is a 1960, well, it's a long story. It's from the mid 60s. This is an early 7619 9060. And this is original lume. That's the original lume. See that? And what's interesting though, well, to me, Seiko lume, even old Seiko lume from the 60s, typically will still glow, even for a little bit. It'll glow for a bit. And another thing Seiko does, Seiko lume typically doesn't ever tan like this. This is more like a tritium thing. So interestingly, this is that tan tritium color in those beautiful little indices. Doesn't glow at all. Hands on the dial don't glow at all. 100% original, like not even a glimmer of light, nothing. The only watches I have that do that are Rolexes of the same period with tritium lume. But look, it's amazing that the lume survived as well as it did. This watch was a junker, and I mean junker. It came to me, God, it probably came, I'm not sure. This one might have actually come in a job watch lot from Ramon or something like that. But it was just, the crystal was destroyed. The case back had cracked. The movement had completely filled with water, rusted solid. But that somehow though, the dial really didn't suffer that much. So that's the original hands, the original dial, original lume. The case was really banged up. I cleaned it up with some 1500 grit wet sand just for myself, just to take off the worst offenders, and then I hand polished it with some 3000. And that's a brand new original crystal. When you look at it really close, it's not perfect, but that's a really attractive watch, I think. It's just, I'll talk more about it later on. Seriously, my only regret is that I didn't get a picture of what this watch looked like before I did this. You should have seen it. I mean, it was just, the movement was just, well, the movement wasn't terrible. It could have certainly been a whole lot worse, but the fact that the dial foot screws were welded in place with rust, boy, that was a problem. Anyway, so I want to, when I go and talk about what I've been doing, I'll show this watch off some more, because I think that's neat. Okay. Let's see. Oh, yes, I never read Forbin Colossus's thing. Wait, at 38 minutes and 18 seconds, wait for Sabrina's laugh incredulously at Spencer's so-called, quote, worst mistake. Oh, every mistake I make is worse than the last one. They just keep getting worse. I don't know,
What do you do?
I have no idea. I don't remember. It was last week.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either. None of this stuff is scheduled or or none of this stuff is. This is all done on the fly. No one remembers anything. Who knows? Like, I don't even keep these questions. You'd think if I'd had a brain, I would have been keeping these printout of questions, but also keeping the actual word files so that one could do like a keyword search and figure out which video has what. But I didn't do that. Every single time I just overwrite them and change them, and then I shred them, and that's the end of it. DMITS 22. That Lawyer Hydra is so nice. I just ordered the Series 2 in black gilt. I know it's great because you're truly excited by yours. It has a certain one of the blue dials like yours, but they don't have any made up right now. And you know what? I like black dials with gilt hands, so I'm happy. Hey, me too. I do love a 6159 and golden tuna. I think that stuff's great. Let's see. And bonus, a Miyota 9015. So the case with the Plexidome crystal is all of 11.5 millimeters thick. That's pretty low. 39 millimeter case at 11.5 millimeters is perfect for my 8 1/4 inch wrist. I'm gonna wear the blank out of this. No, it's really cool. I haven't opened mine up, but the finishing is nice. It's got clean but not boring lines. The casework is good. There are a couple things I know I was supposed to do a yesterday's watch review today about it. I just haven't done it. I'm just burned out. I think I just want to take a nap for a couple of days. But there's some couple things like the side profile between the case, which has chamfered down, but the sides of the bracelet are completely flat. So when you're looking at it from an angle, it looks visually like the bracelet's a lot thicker than the case, even though it isn't. It's an optical illusion, but it's still nice. I swear if I get any time or burst of energy, I'll do that video. I really want to. That's a useful video rather than me blabbering, wasting everybody's day. John Boy of Alaska. Old Timex mechanicals. They were definitely meant to be serviced. The plates are screwed together, but from the dial side, I didn't know. There's a whole series of Timex service manuals with all the steps for servicing them. Now, after the 1960s, they weren't worth their value to service, but if they're in good running order to start, they can be serviced in about an hour. I'll try one. I found it's got a broken lug though, but I found like a first gen. You know that Timex reissue that just came out, the dress watch, the Marlin or whatever the heck it was. I found one of those, but an original, but one of the lugs is broken off. But maybe I'll pull it apart. Daryl Willman. This is a comment, must have been about a video with an NH35. A few points. I have a watch with an NH35A, and that's the same thing as a 4R. NH just is the generic designation when they sell just the movement. I have a watch with an NH35A that changes fine with quick date set, but won't flip over at midnight all the way. Date set won't flip over at midnight all the way. I suspect it is, as you say, it has moved past the spring loading. I've also seen the small gear there is easy to break a tooth off. What the hell was that? I don't hear screaming. I haven't opened it up yet. I also, well, I guess I have a few questions. Did the watch come from the factory to you and it's a brand new watch? Or is it like one that you modded or bought modded from somebody else? The date not clicking all the way over at midnight. So does it get caught like halfway? Put your answer down below and I'll talk to you about that. Let's see. I also have a couple Timex manual wines from the 60s, and yes, not really serviceable. Growing up with hand wine watches, I was never a fan of quartz movements, but your videos show me there are some amazing ones. My particular beef, however, is opening up a nice quartz watch and finding a $7 movement. Oh God, I hate that like you wouldn't even believe. But there's in the late and middle 70s, Seiko's quartz offerings were fantastic. There's a movement family that I'm researching now. Basically, when I took my time off, what I did is I'm a, I'm a little bored is not the right word. I'm not getting the same level of excitement that I used to get from doing my usual like chronographs and divers and stuff like that. So I jumped into a drawer of my project watches that hasn't been touched for a long time because they're all dress watches. And I got myself really excited about dress watches. And I mean, I guess we can go and talk about those dress watches in a little bit. But what I was going to say was I had some really nice quartz movements, and there were a number of movement types, families I wasn't familiar with at all. I've owned the watches for God knows how long, but like one of them is like the Seiko 5933, Seiko 5932. They're a 6 jewel movement, and they have a really unusual trimmer. It's actually got two separate trimmers. One will adjust for a second, positive or negative, and the other one will adjust for a quarter of a second, positive or negative. It's very cool. I discovered that there is a high-end variant of the 7123 quartz movement. 7123 it's a good movement. I think they're only a couple of jewels, but they're metal trains. But there's a higher version of it called the 7145, and it has extra jeweling. It has nice filled red lettering. It almost looks like a display movement. And there were some cool 7123 like sport divers and some other stuff. There was some cool stuff they did. It'd be fun to upgrade and put a clear back on there. I also, just talking about quartz, I got excited enough talking about quartz from last week that I did this Moonface. I haven't had one for years, and then I did one for Ryan, and I thought that was really cool. And I went and looking online, and I found one, and I bought it and I restored it. There it is. Very cool. I haven't worn Moonphase in years. But yeah, I mean, I guess let's talk about dress watches, and then I'll come back. Yeah. So while I was, taking time off and fiddling with my own stuff, I decided to dig into dress watches. I have a lot of them. And I've collected them over the years a long time, and most of them I don't, they've just sat. And I was never really into dress watches until, I was really craving, dealing with something I don't get to work with often. So I had that sort of thrill of watchmaking. So I found a couple nice, like, 5126s. These are both original. They're untouched. In good condition. Look, that's original polish. That's from the 60s there, huh? Right? Look at that original condition. This one is also really nice. Just finding some cool stuff. These have actually a wedge-shaped end links. I'm gonna have great fun trying to find a bracelet for that. Anyway, but that's a nice watch too. Looking and I was just digging through, and I'm like, gosh, I've got so much neat stuff. So many cool things to work on, and so I started working on stuff like this. It's not running right now because I took the battery out. Seiko Elnix, 16 jewels, high beat. This thing is crazy. I never really looked at one of these movements closely before, but they really are something. So I went through this one, and it runs as a high beat. It just has a domed mineral glass in it now. It's supposed to be faceted, but I couldn't find one. So for the time being, I just took this generic watch crystal and put that in. It does. It runs as a high beat. It's really cool. No, I'll have to unscrew everything. I'm not going to do that right now. I also found there were a number of dress watches that Seiko made in the 60s. A bunch of different ones, 7005, 6119, 7625. They made versions of them. These are original and unrestored. There's another one. Aren't they cool? So many of these have been cannibalized for their hands, because it's the same as all three is the same as the 62 MAS, right down to the greenish loom. And the hour and the minute hands are the same as the 6105s. It's really, I talk about the 6105 being maybe for me the second gen having the hands being too thin, but I think for a dress watch it's just really clean design. And so these I haven't restored. I've just been fiddling with. There's all kinds of other stuff that I'm considering working on. 7559. It's a quartz, but when it has a battery and you push the crown in and it lights up, and the chapter ring is translucent. I'm like, that's cool, isn't it? That's got a little neat functionality. Here's another one of that same. Has that same 7559, where you push that in, it would light up. This one also works. It's complete with its original bracelet. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. There's also, here's another one I did for fun. This is a Seiko 3003, again with the incorrect crystal. But look at the dial. Look at the dial on that thing. That's original everything. See that crazy iridescence? Isn't that a beautiful piece? Isn't that crazy? And this has just been sitting in my drawers forever. Anyway, I serviced this. I have the original bracelet for it. It's supposed to have a fast crystal, but I couldn't find one. It's neat. I want to find a sort of a sturdier bracelet than the original and maybe wear this. What a beautiful, beautiful watch. I don't know, just basically fooling around, looking at stuff. But the best thing that I found and finally did during my dress watch phase was restoring this 7619 9060 from 1964. I've had this watch forever. So let me clean this up and we'll talk about it. So in the early mid-60s, Seiko used different movements and different things that they don't produce anymore, like the 8300 series, or this proto, it's the 76 series. This is an old school movement. And it was one that I kind of didn't really think nice thoughts about. It's kind of old school. This is unrestored, by the way. I mean, it's pretty typical Seiko in everything it does and kind of how it does it. They're primitive in the sense they have a lot of like the loose parts and loose springs that if you don't take them apart correctly, they'll go blink and they go everywhere. They're slow, but they're very highly jeweled, and they're nicely put together. And they run slow, but they have great amplitude, and they can give us a lot of real positional stability. I'm so annoyed that I didn't save pictures of what this looked like. The only relic of its past that I still have, if I can find it, where did I put it? Did it drop off? Go. Unbelievable. Where'd the crystal go? Well, you'll have to take my word for it until I find it. I have the original crystal this watch, and it's just like the haziest, grossest thing you've ever seen. It's amazingly like how bad off it is. The watch had been completely flooded, filled with water from the back. Just corrosion and rust and grossness and just being banged around. Oh wait, there it is. There's the crystal. And that's clean. It was this just utterly filthy wreck. But the loom was good, so I kept it and I've worked on it. These are pretty funky. Like I said, they're sort of the 7619s are they're the sort of the high end of this movement family. They're 24 joules, 26 joules, 25 joules. This one's a 26. That's why I was confused, because I put a lower mainspring arbor jewel in there. They did some funky stuff. This one is unusual. It's kind of like, I don't know, primitive in a weird way. It doesn't, rather than the 7625s, all of which are date only, this one, of course, they added the day. And so they decided, for whatever reason, to make sure everything lined up, to put the crown here at like 17, which is strange. And then for quick set, the date is this little button. I'm not going to do it, but that's how it works. It's a really funky setup. But the dial is beautiful. I mean, it's shows its wear, but it is lovely. Wear on the dial. The loom is original, but look at the faceting on the markers. They're angled in and angled out. I'm just really pleased with it. I think it's a beautiful watch. Beautiful. Okay. But the greatest fun I've had has been playing with these 6216s, 6216 and 6218 watches. Really, it's been just a lot of fun. These are two of the same model. This one I really like. This is the bracelet it came to me on. Now, it's not Seiko marked, but it's definitely like, this is old. It's an old bracelet, and it looks like it's been on this watch for a very long time. Isn't it so pretty? I love these. I really actually prefer this setup versus the, date over here is nice. It's normal. It's what I'm used to. This is nice because it spreads out the look of things. It's a nice watch. It's comfortable. One thing that's nice about this model too is that it has these nice longer lugs. It doesn't have these are sort of shortish, chunky lugs. They don't actually. I swear there's a difference. Like, you look at this and you can see that the lugs are elongated and flatter. And sort of because of the heightened length, the watch wears a little lower. It's a really, really nice watch. This model is great. I did this one too, just to see how they both came out. And this one, actually, the movement is a little nicer than this one, but, what are you going to do? I don't need two of them, so one of them's going to go. Slightly different dials. It's really, really cool watches. Really neat. Absolutely worth picking up if you can find one of these. Do it. They're cool because they're it's a very good movement. Very good movement. Anyway, that's some of the other things I've been doing. Hi Spencer, I'm interested in building my own Seiko 7002 or the SKX 173 because I love the square indices and I love the transitional 7002 dial with the 200 meter divers. I have an SKX 007. My question is, can a 7002 dial fit an NH35 movement? Though I'm considering buying a used one, but it's difficult to find a good one. Yes, the dial 7002 dial will drop right onto any other 7000 series. Pretty much it should. The problem, though, is that the 7002 was emulating the earlier Sua mainline divers, all of which had crown at 4. That was a big Sua thing. But then the 7002 was the first Daini entry, and they kept that crown at 4 only for that 7002. As soon as the 7002 was phased out in the late middle 90s, middle late 90s, Daini decided that they wanted to have more parts commonality, and so instead of having a crown with a crown at 3 and 4. 3 for Stratocroft and 4 for the next one. They do it 3 and 345. That means they don't have to manufacture two different date wheels. So it saves them a little bit of money. It cuts some money out. So it'll fit, but the problem is that the whole dial will be cranked counterclockwise, and so it'll look funky. You could. If you could get an NH30, you can get an NH35 or 6R15, and you can drop it into a 7002. The big deal is you've got to retrofit the 7002 date wheel onto the NH35 or 6R, 4R35 or 6R15 or whatever, and that requires modifying the date dial guard. I've talked about it a little bit. I've done it, but it's not as easy as you'd think. Okay. Tony Zaidman. Zaidman? I hope I got that right. Hi Spencer, could you please show the crown tube replacement on a Seiko 6309 7040? My tube has flared and the crown will not screw down anymore. I have looked on YouTube but I can't find any reference to this tube being replaced, although I have found the part on eBay. It looks like you have to press the tube out from the inside. I'm not sure you could pull it out from the outside. That would destroy it, but I believe the press the new one back in. Any advice would be greatly received. Great show as always. Well, thank you. Best wishes, and best wishes to you. There really isn't crown tube replacement on those cases. There can be, because they sell the part. You can get it on eBay. There's no... When Seiko assembled those cases, it's near as I can tell, they put the crown tube in, and they didn't like glue it or solder it or anything. They ran current through it to basically heat it up and basically weld it inside the case. I remember years ago, a friend of mine had a bad case. It was really, truly a bad case. And he was like, okay, well, let's figure out, this case is destroyed. Let's figure out what it actually takes to get a crown tube out. And he never did get it out. It got to the point that he just gave up after doing all this kind of stuff, pressing and heating and cooling and all this other stuff. Eventually, he just cut the case right in half, near through where the tube was. So it should have just fallen out at that point, but it was absolutely firm in the case. It wouldn't move at all. So what you would have to do is you would basically have to ream out the old one and get that machined out to the right inner diameter, the right ID, and then to make it right, and then you press in the new tube, and then I don't think you're going to electrically weld it, but I mean you could put it in with like, oh, I don't know, some hardcore 2-part epoxy. That's probably what I would do, because you don't want it to come back out again. And Seiko made that hardcore to make sure that there was no way for water to get in. They could trust it. Adrian Hargreaves. Hi Spencer, hope you're all well. So far. I'm hearing a lot about Chinese Seiko homages and how they're great quality. I'd love to see you strip one down and give your opinion on it. I'm in the not sure camp. Great video as always. Well, Adrian, I basically have that video when I did my review of the Redune. That I took it apart. I showed the case and the inside. And I think I have a follow-up video. So if you search on my channel for Redune, you'll come up with those videos. Snack Lofter. Really missed last week, but glad you had a break. Spencer, watching now with a roaring coal fire and a mug of tea. Thanks for a great channel, ATB Snack. Okay. I had it. Hang on a second. So it's lots of fun working on all this stuff. The thing for me that's cool is to finally get to a point where dress watches kind of tickle my fancy. It's nice to work with movements I'm not 100% familiar with. It's nice to come up with new techniques and have new and different things to wear. I mean, I really do love this watch. I've had this watch. I wish I remember where I got it. It was in a parts lot a decade ago, and it was totally rusty, but that beautiful lume just grabbed me. Isn't that something? It was so rough. I'm just so annoyed I didn't take any pictures. Oh well. Let's see. Ryan Walters. Omega is a consummate offender in the limited offerings genre. They commit the same sin of putting the same movement as a production run model in some special models, changing a few cosmetic things and jacking the prices up beyond unconscionable. It's true. The thing that really gets me is when Omega came out with their Hodinkee collaboration where they recreated the Mark 40, which was a triple date watch, but they just used the colorway and they put it onto a Speedy Pro. So it's literally just a Speedy Pro with a different colorway, and they sold out immediately, and their value on the secondary market's been huge. But I just looked at it and I'm like, you can still find the original. I owned the original. I owned a first gen original in extremely nice shape. And I was like, well, I guess it's the color that people like, but it's totally different. I don't know. It's strange. Oh yes, and you were also laughing at me saying that it is simple and it is green. I actually tried. I tried it. I tried the simple green thing. So let me talk about that. But the great thing about this watch is it proves the the simple green thing. That's the deal. Hang on, get my brain going. I tried it, the simple green trick, and it worked. I tried it on one bracelet that I mentioned that was totally packed with filth. It cleaned up. This was pretty nasty. Whoever this guy was who owned this, it was filled with black crap. This one was bad enough because he never cleaned it, that unusually for a watch that didn't live in a wet environment, it has stainless steel pitting on some of these surfaces, like on the inside of the buttons in here, because the guy just never cleaned it, and then all the filth would hold moisture right against the metal. Given enough time, it'll rust. But anyway, it was nasty. This was really bad. But this was the second test. The first was that bracelet, totally filled with stuff, cleaned up great. I had to soak it for probably a good day or more. I soaked this for, I don't know, an hour or two. So now I'm going with the ultimate test. Now this simple green that was in here was perfectly clean. I haven't did anything to it until I put this stuff in. I'm trying it with the worst offenders, old man Speidel bracelets. So I put these in here, I don't know, a couple hours ago, I think. Oh yeah, that's the good stuff, right? Look, the water stream. It was clear. Though this stuff never made sense to me, and Sabrina and I figured it out because I thought it was like water with like food coloring and like citrus in it or something. But it's of course naturally filled with deadly chemicals that kill blood cells and probably cause birth defects. So don't drink this stuff. But it does work. Anyway, we'll see how this goes. Yeah, these stretchy bands, right? These old man bands. And they're just perfect filters for just getting packed, and they're really hard to get clean. So we'll try that. I have been informed that Milo has bad breath. Priyan Mystery, he's talking about 6138 crown removal. Terrifying if you remove the crown in the wrong position. Heck of a lot of work with the Helix Works. Oh yeah, no, how many layers is that? You've got the case, and then you've got the hands, and then you have the dial, then you have to take off the calendar elements, then you have to remove the calendar plate, then you have to pull off the 12-hour register arms, the reset arms, those have to come off. Then you have to pull apart the Keyless Works, which includes a setting lever with wheel and a very particular spring setup that's got like a rocker deal that it goes back and forth on. Trust me, one can a couple of times. I have fixed that problem, not by taking it apart, but by turning the watch so that the crown is down with the crown in my hand. And you sometimes, if you tap, sometimes you can get that to drop back into place and pop it back in. I haven't done it often, but I have done it. Rick, I have a Laurier Neptune as well. Their new Hyperion GMT. I've been skittish about micro brands, but these are fantastic. I agree. They have a very nice subdued vintage-inspired design and killer bracelets. Their quality is nice quality. And the nice thing is, too, is that they kind of hark to certain different watch traditions in terms of their designs. But at the same time, I find them instantly like I can look at one and I'm like, that's a Laurier. And there aren't a whole lot of watch models that do that these days because all the other like micro brands, they all look exactly the same. They're all thin, round, Bauhausy dress watches with baton hands, made by someone who's going to reinvent the watch world or take the watch world by storm. It's all the same stuff. They recently upgraded their whole line from Seiko Instruments NH35 to Miyota 9015 movements, which allowed for thinner cases and more refined timekeeping. The one complaint people tend to have about them is that their intentional use of acrylic crystals. Okay, so they are crystals, acrylic crystals. I like acrylic actually. I don't mind it at all. It has sort of a warmth to it, and you can polish them. And the nice thing is that they're super durable. It is really hard to do bad things to an acrylic. They really resist. They'll scratch, but man, they don't. Cracking is, you have to really whack them to do that. After getting mine, I'm definitely on team acrylic. Yeah, I agree. The company is a husband and wife team from New York City who are very responsive to emails. Really? I'll write them if somebody wants to give me their email. By the way, in my comment you read here, SII is not S2, but Seiko Instruments Incorporated. Okay, so we're using the acronym. Would I say SII? Okay, I can't say Seiko 2, S2. Seiko Instruments? Just, do you see that thing? What do you say? Okay. SII is not S2, but Seiko Instruments Incorporated, which is descended from Daini, like Seiko Epson from Suwa, and still makes mechanical movements for Seiko branded watches today, as well as some quartz. Jumping onto manual winding, which we talked about last week. I've seen anecdotes the ETA and Sellita manual winding gears are not well made. The teeth wear and break. Some movements are better than others. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, ETA's been making hand wind and auto wind movements for a very, very long time. Many, many decades. 70 years now? Unless they're cutting costs by using an inferior material, I don't know why they would make that change. I mean, it's rare to see an ETA with broken winding teeth. I can't ever remember seeing it. That's not true. No, but that was broken by owner misuse. That wasn't a materials failure. The person who owned it didn't know what they were doing, and they ended up breaking something. I don't know. I'm skeptical. I have faith in ETA. Last point regarding modern Seiko. They have reduced themselves to an endless stream of limited edition colorways of the same 5 watches. I'm over it. Hi, Sabrina. We hear you.
I'm playing Stardew Valley.
She's playing Stardew Valley. So it's nice. She doesn't have to, or her doing makeup to do this stuff, it's like an hour of work for her, and then she looks like she's going for a job interview for the rest of a lazy Friday. But she has a ton of other stuff she needs to do. I'm not going to bore you guys with all the stuff that's been going on here. But right now in the afternoons, we have it set up that she gets a break. She just gets to sit there and play her Stardew Valley. Let's see. Well, this last question, Ivan Mejia, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong. Hi, Spencer. What are your thoughts on the new Zenith El Primero debate about some people saying it's an homage to the Rolex Daytona? See, look, it rang just about 3 minutes before. That's not bad for a clock that belonged to probably my great-grandfather. Whenever I look at something that I say, oh wow, they're trying to look like the Rolex Daytona, it's because they're using the weird number font that the Rolex Daytona's used. It's almost the same number font that is used for the date wheels on Bellmatics, but in the context of Rolex Daytonas, I don't like that font at all. It looks like somebody screwed up and they had a font substitution error. It just looks wrong to me. I don't like it. So I haven't really thought about it. I'll have to look at the new Zenith El Primero and see how I feel about that. I'll revisit this and I'll come back and see how I feel about it. That's it. That's questions for the week. thank you for your continued support. I appreciate it. I apologize for being grumpy about making videos. I enjoy talking to people, so I just have to get over it and do it. I don't think we've got anything going on next Friday, do we? She doesn't know. Okay, folks, you have a great weekend, and I swear I'll do that. I want to email the Laurier couple and talk to them, just because I think their watch is neat, and maybe we can do a collab. Okay, see you, folks.